TCU had two players in the Locked On College Football Top 100 College Football Players list. I think they should have had a few more. I'll tell you why next year on Locked On Horned Frogs, your team every day.
You are Locked On Horned Frogs, your daily podcast on the TCU Horned Frogs. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Locked On Horned Frogs, your team every day. I'm your host, Steven Simcox. We're brought to you today by Gametime. Check out the Gametime app. Give it a try today. Download tickets, buy tickets. I'll tell you about them later on in the show. We have made it to fall camp, friends. There is a football practice that is going to happen, a real TCU football practice that's happening today. Team getting set for the season opener against North Carolina. So really excited to talk about that all next week. Also have some thoughts here in segment 2. Just storylines, things I'm interested in seeing, getting more clarity on as we hear from Sonny Dykes and the coaching staff over the next few weeks. But we start today, the Locked On Network, Locked On College Football, all the hosts, we voted on the top 100 players in college football. And I got to submit 5 TCU players as nominations. So the 5 guys that I submitted to nominate for the top 100 players in college football on TCU's roster: Josh Hoover, Eric McAllister, Bud Clark, Marcus Deal, Devin Deal. Those were the 5 players that I nominated for the top 100 players in college football. 2 of those players ended up getting selected by our esteemed panel of hosts, and that was Bud Clark at number 76 and Josh Hoover at number 84. I am not shocked that the other 3 didn't make it, but I think they should have. I feel like Devin Deal was super productive sacking the quarterback last year. He's coming back for another season. Marcus Deal, young interior defensive lineman that wrecks shop and creates a lot of havoc. And then Eric McAllister had over 700 yards receiving last year and kind of a limited role. Will step into more of a role this year with the departure of Jack Best, Savion Williams, JP Richardson. I believe he's on tap for a great season. But as I've said a lot over this offseason, it's up to TCU to change it. They're going to have some opportunities. I think the first couple weeks of the year, they start the season in North Carolina. They play SMU, a team that played in the college football playoff last year. They get Arizona State, Colorado. You get my point. There's a lot of high-profile games on the schedule this upcoming season. I believe in the back half of last season, even though they played better and improved a lot, they sort of fell out of the national conversation, and they're going to have to find a way to supplant themselves back into it this upcoming year. So I'm not surprised that Josh Hoover and Bud Clark were the only 2 that were on the list. I think a few more of these guys deserved it, though. As to where they fell on the list, well, I guess I'll start with the top 10 players in college football as voted by the committee. Jeremiah Smith, number 1, wide receiver, Ohio State. Caleb Downs, number 2, safety, Ohio State. Number 3, edge rusher Dylan Stewart from South Carolina. Number 4, running back Jeremiah Love from Notre Dame. Number 5, Ryan Williams, wide receiver, Alabama. Number 6, Cade Klubnik, quarterback at Clemson. Number 7, Anthony Hill, linebacker at Texas. Number 8, Garrett Nussmeier, quarterback at LSU. Number 9, Colin Simmons, linebacker at Texas. And then number 10, Keldrick Falk, defensive lineman from Auburn. So as you would expect, heavy SEC and Big Ten influence there. Those are your top 10 players. Could TCU have a player that is in the top 10 in college football? I think the player that has the best chance is Josh Hoover. If TCU is playing for a Big 12 championship and Josh puts up similar numbers to last season, cuts down the interceptions, maybe throws for more yards or throws for more touchdowns, then he'll be in the Heisman conversation. I'm not saying he's going to make it to New York or anything like that, but if you're a good quarterback on a really good football team, the attention's going to be there and you'll have the opportunity to be a top 10, top 20 player in college football. And then that would make his decision next year really intriguing, because I read a story that Pete Thamel wrote a few weeks ago. It was after Big 12 Media Days about Josh and his leadership and just who he is as a player. And he talked with an NFL scout that was like, right now he's a day, maybe day 2 guy, but most likely day 3 guy. If he's in the range of like top 10 players in college football, then I believe the draft would be tempting. But at the same time, you come back to school for another year, you're going to get paid. You're going to get paid well by TCU and revenue sharing, and then have the opportunity for NIL deals on top of that. So he would have a tough decision ahead of him, but I believe he has the chance to make that argument if he has another big season and TCU wins games. That's really the big key for all of this. If TCU is winning games and playing in high profile games, these players will get more attention. But where these two guys fell in the context of the list, Josh Hoover at 76. So he's among players like Bud Clark at 76. So Bud Clark's among players like Avery Johnson at 73, Austin Barber, an offensive lineman from Florida, 71. Right below him, Luke Altmaier, a QB at Illinois. So in that 71 to 80 range. And then Josh Hoover at 84. Eli Stowers at number 81, the tight end from Vandy. Haynes King, another quarterback, number 89 at Georgia Tech. I did find that interesting because Haynes King is another QB that this offseason there's a lot of like, man, I feel like he's kind of underrated. I'm not sure everybody's paying attention to what he did last year. Of course, they had that big win against Florida State to open the year. That win didn't look as big when the season wrapped up because Florida State really struggled. Another Big 12 player in that 81 to 90 range, DJ McKinney, the corner from Colorado. So Bud Clark, number 76, and Josh Hoover, number 84. I was pleasantly surprised that Bud was ranked higher than Josh. Just because I feel like QBs typically get priority in these types of things. Like when you're thinking about best players, most impactful players, quarterback's your first thought. That being said, number 1 and number 2 on this list were both Ohio State players. One of them is wide receiver. One of them is a safety. But talking with Bud at Big 12 Media Days was fun. I mean, he said this, and of course you have to take it with a grain of salt. Part of this is most likely just kind of coach speak and the excitement of a new season. But he mentioned that the first thing Trey Watson told him, Trey Watson, the new safeties coach coming over from Cal, and he has a reputation through his career of coaching guys that put up high interceptions totals, coaching defenses that prioritize takeaways and make it happen on the field. He told Bud Clark, we're going to lead the nation in interceptions. And that would be such a huge win for TCU. Even if they can't lead the nation, if they're in the top 10, because how many Sonny Dykes led teams have had good defenses? I think those last couple of years at SMU, he had respectable defenses that could hold their own, but truly like a good defense, like a top 50 unit in the country. And I think with the high-powered offense TCU has, there's multiple ways to go about it. You can be a good defense in the sense that you lock teams down. You're forcing a lot of 3-and-outs, forcing a lot of punts, giving your offense good field position. But then there's also the way they played in 2022 for the most part, which there were times where they struggled, but they were very opportunistic. They forced turnovers. And they also just seem to have a good sense of the moment. And that's a hard thing to measure, but it was like when they needed a big stop to stop the bleeding or to give their offense a chance to go take the lead, or with a lead late, need a stop to, put an end to a comeback from the other team. They found a way to do that. So if they could take a step forward, it would be a big win for this TCU team, because I don't know how it's going to shake out with the offense. I think at the end of the day, it's going to be a productive unit because Sonny Dykes led teams always are. With the offense, for me, it's not as much about production as it is efficiency. I think they're going to score points, but how efficiently are you doing it? Are you able to put together and sustain drives? Are you limiting turnovers, right? But defensively, that would just be a big change in identity if you had a team coached by Sonny Dykes that was really good defensively. And to his credit, by hiring Andy Avalos, he invested in that side of the ball more than he has in the past. Like he went and got a guy that's got a really good reputation across college football. It's year 2. Let's get to work. And for Josh, I think he's underrated. I don't think he's gotten the attention he deserves this offseason, but we are fully at the point now where it doesn't matter. Practice is starting. Games will be starting in about a month. And he has his chance to prove what he can do. Like he's no longer at the whims of people's thoughts and projections. It'll be actually about the stats and the win-loss record when these games get going here in the near future. When we come back, practice starts today. Just some general storylines, things I'm excited about. This young defensive line, can they step up? That's coming up next here on Locked On Horned Frogs, your team every day. I love all our sponsors, but when they send us stuff to try, things to sample, I love that especially. And DripDrop was kind enough to send the Locked On host an assortment of their products. So I got 32 of their hydration packets. If you struggle to stay hydrated, I like to drink water, but this is taken to the next level for me. My wife, she's a nurse. She never drinks enough water. I'm always telling her, like, babe, you have to drink more water. You have to stay hydrated. This has been a game changer for her as well because it tastes good and it's a lot less sugar than some of your typical sports drink products that you might try to get your electrolytes from. When you're on top of your hydration, everything works better. Your energy's better, your mood, your focus. You will notice this. It has 3 times the hydration DripDrop does of your typical sports drink. And you just 8 ounces of water, put the flavor packet in there, stir it up, and you're ready to go. Use code LOCKEDONCollege for 20% off your first order at DripDrop.com. Again, that's DripDrop.com. LockedOnCollege is a promo code for 20% off your first order. If you need to stay hydrated, if you've got a busy job and you're like, I can't, how many cups of water am I supposed to drink a day? This is a cheat code because it's got the electrolytes. It's got the things you need to keep your body going, even if you're busy, even if you got a lot going on. DripDrop.com. Use code LockedOnCollege for 20% off your first order. DripDrop. Appreciate them becoming a sponsor of the Locked On Network. All right, we've got real football practice happening starting today. And I've been trying to talk to you guys about some of the maybe more under the radar storylines and things about fall camp I'm interested in because, listen, anybody, we can all sit here and talk about, well, you know, Josh Hoover has to have a good season. Of course he does. Eric McAllister needs to step up. We've discussed those things through the offseason. And a lot of the starting spots on this TCU team have been figured out. I don't think we're going to see a lot of surprises. There's always a few when we get that first depth chart. And the way college coaches handle depth charts now, it's almost like state secrets. They don't really tell you the whole story. We'll see a couple of those. The majority of these positions, though, I think it's pretty set who's going to do what and where. But things to look for through the first couple of weeks of spring practice. A listener named Jared reached out to me, and I appreciated him doing this. You know, sometimes I'm often just kind of on here talking, and I forget about names or I forget about players that could contribute. When I was discussing where's the pass rush going to come from outside of Devin Deal this season, I mentioned a number of names, but one guy I forgot about was Travis Jackson. And he called me on it, and he was totally right. Like, Travis Jackson had a productive season last year when he was on the field. He was another one of those guys that probably played more than the coaching staff would have wanted him to in his freshman season. But the plus side of that is he got a lot of valuable experience, and now he's going to be ready to go for this upcoming year at that defensive end spot. That's a dude that can play for you. My big concern along the defensive line right now, and honestly in both places, it's about depth. It's not about your starters. I think your starters are going to be really good. Marcus Deal, Ansel Dimbu, that's a good combo on the interior. 2 guys that can get after the quarterback, that are big, physical. Dimbu especially was very active getting to the QB and racking up sacks last year in the Pac-12, I guess technically, while he was trying to kind of going with an outlaw schedule this past season. But he'll be there. Marcus Deal. once you get past those guys, who's going to step up? Now, Connor Lindgren's a player that did some good things last season. And then Tristan Johnson's a guy that also made some waves in spring camp. I always wonder about players that haven't gotten like actual reps and snaps in games, stepping in and being like rotational pieces. But I mean, he's got the size and the physicality you would want at that position. And stopping the run just can be such a huge, like, if this defense improves, that has to improve. Last season, they had trouble in the passing game. They eventually had to make a change. JT Broughton um, struggled and just wasn't consistent, struggled in one-on-one matchups. And so they switched around the corner rotation a little bit and figured that out. But um, the main problem was teams just felt like they could run on them at will. I mean, the Baylor game was tough. Now, a big part of that was Marcus Deal was out with an injury. Kima Jibalaiba also went down early in that game, I believe, with an injury. So both players were unavailable. But for all the talk about Sawyer Robertson, like, what really hurt this team and that ball game was Bryson Washington just ran the ball all over the place. Now, it wasn't just the front seven. I mean, the run fits from your secondary players, from your linebackers weren't good. I think that especially showed up in the UCF game. And so that was a big problem as well. You would hope that part of the defense gets better just by virtue of, again, playing another season, having another year in the system, having a better understanding of like what the expectations are. But coming downhill, making tackles, making sure you're in the right gap, and then the D line holding their own in those matchups, like all that has to be solid for this run defense to be good. And if teams can run the ball on you, unless they make a mistake in play calling, like they're just going to do that until you force them to move off of it and do something else. So that defensive line depth, I don't think it's the starters. However, you're not like D line's one of those spots where you're not going to have your 4 or 5 guys out there all the time. Like you really do need that rotation going so that everybody's fresh, that they're able to make plays and play with high energy and high motor at all times. So you gotta have some depth in those spots. And I think interior D line especially is a place where the rubber's gonna meet the road as far as when those starters are out. How do you manage that and how well can you find a way to hold your own in some of those matchups? We're always intrigued by QB. Now it's not a battle for the starting job, but how comfortable is Adam Schobel? And not really in like 7-on-7 and 1-on-1 drills, because that stuff, not that it's easy, but I expect the offense to win a lot of those battles. In those team settings, is he able to make plays? Is he doing what the coaching staff's asking him to? And are they giving him opportunities with the second team at times? Because I love Ken Seals. I think his role in this team is defined, and you need a veteran QB to have that presence and in the locker room, and then to be that, hey, if something goes wrong and you have to play, like at least we know there's somebody in there that's not going to look like a deer in headlights when they hit the field for the first time. But Schobel's the future here. Like he's the guy that has to find his way over the next few seasons. And like it or not, like there's a lot of reasons for it. I talked about Haas like a week ago, and Tommy Fisher mentioned, the fact that they didn't let him throw the ball kind of tells you what the coaching staff thought about him, which maybe that's true. Like maybe he just didn't have the arm that they were expecting or wasn't progressing at the rate that they want him to. But whatever the story was, like that was a guy that you evaluated and thought you were going to hand the keys to, and within a year, he's moving on. Part of that's just the nature of college football now. It's not a trend that you want to start tapping into, though. Like you need to find a way to get somebody on that roster that is set up for the future when and if Josh Hoover decides to move on. So those things will be exciting to see, flesh out. And then there's a lot of guys that we're excited about and think have potential. And so we'll get to hear like, okay, is there some real legs to that assessment here in the next couple of weeks? We'll come back and wrap things up. It's Locked on Horned Frogs, your team every day. I love the Gametime app. It's super easy to use. Even if you're not tech savvy, like you can figure out the Gametime app very quickly. Download it today. Tickets on the secondary market that are affordable. You can wait till the last minute. You don't have to buy weeks in advance. Like they have deals even up to the day of the game, right before first pitch. If you're looking for MLB tickets, Rangers, Astros, the middle of playoff race right now, trade deadline is wrapping up as I record this. Gametime app is the place to go. Download it today. Use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Again, code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Download the Gametime app today. Use code LOCKEDONCollege. Terms and conditions, as always, apply. Gametime. Give it a try. So, yes, fall camp starts this week. If you missed it earlier this week, TCU baseball going to have a couple scrimmages. One against Texas A&M, one against Texas State. The game against Texas A&M will be in College Station. The game against Texas State will be home in Fort Worth. So two good opponents for a young team and a team that'll be filled with some transfers to get a sense of how good they are, what kind of personnel they have, and who will be doing what once the season starts. That'll be fun to watch. Kirk Saarloos looking for a bounce back year. They made the tournament. That was a super disappointing 2-Q situation though. And yeah, got to find a way to bounce back in a big way moving forward. I'll close with this. I saw a clip on social media earlier this week. It was John Rothstein, who covers college basketball for CBS Sports, and he's all over it. And he was talking about the Big 12. And he said, if you're looking for a Big 12 team outside of the usual suspects that we think are going to be good, look at TCU. And the reason why he singled out TCU is because he said David Punch is an all-conference type of player. He thinks David has that type of potential. And then they went and added some good pieces in the transfer portal. LT, the small forward from Oregon State, who's from Lithuania originally, can step out and shoot the ball, can also score. Tanner Toulson, another long, lanky guy who can go score the ball. Jaden Pierre, leading scorer at Providence last year and was looking for a new home, found a spot at TCU. I think this team is better. Now, as always with the Big 12, it's going to be a meat grinder. There's no easy ball games, but Jamie, to his credit, like it feels like things are very stagnant right now with the program. And he was in this situation a few years ago, and he figured out how to reconstruct a roster and build a roster around Mike Miles, and he did that well. He did it effectively. Well, now you're in a similar situation, but you don't have Miles as centerpiece. It sounds like they're trying to center this thing around David Punch, which I like David Punch a lot. I think there's room for growth there. There's a high ceiling. My one concern is right now he's a pretty limited offensive player. Now that's the key for him this offseason. That's the project. Like, need to develop a jump shot. I mean, if you want to become a low post scorer, that'd be wonderful, but not a lot of guys that are doing that these days. If he can step out and hit mid-range jumpers, it will help the spacing of this team a lot. It'll add a dimension to his game that he doesn't have right now. And then off of that action, you can swing the ball around and find those other shooters who are going to be ready to rock and roll once the season starts. But my point is, there's some reasons to be excited. I know we're locked into football right now, rightly so. I'm not going to tell you to take your focus off that. And there's a lot of pessimism around the basketball program and how they're building this and what they're doing. I understand all of that. I'm just telling you, it's more than just me. Like, if you think I'm just a homer that's trying to hype things up for views, it's more than just myself that is looking at this roster and is kind of talking themselves into, okay, I think there's a path here if some things break the right way. Also, some national guys taking notice as well. But Our focus is football, and we're going to have plenty of news about fall camp all week long. Thanks for joining me again this week. It's Locked On Horned Frogs, your team every day. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Let's get to 1,500 subscribers before football season starts.